Introduction to Node Package Manager. So let's talk about the current state of our application. We have a working web application with Bootstrap 4 beta installed. Currently, we are loading JavaScript libraries from the content delivery network. And we realize that JavaScript libraries must be loaded in a specific order in order for it to work. By using CDN, we effectively created external dependencies which makes our application fragile. What if CDN is down and we don't have any control over the connectivity of the CDN, so our application won't be working? Can we do better? Can we eliminate these external dependencies from our applications, like the connectivity issue? Can we install our own local version of the libraries and serve them from our application? Can we point to our local libraries from our application? We must answer all these questions in order to eliminate the external dependencies to the CDN from our application. Well, based on Bootstrap's website, it detailed there are multiple ways of installing a local version of the libraries. They are using NPM or RubyGem or Bower.js. Now let's take a look at all three alternatives. RubyGem is only available to Ruby servers such as Ruby on Rails. Since we are not using Ruby on Rails server, we basically cannot use RubyGem. The second one is Bower.js. Bower.js is kind of like the oldest client-tier JavaScript package manager. And it's going out of fashion these days. People realize that we don't need to have two different kind of JavaScript package manager. We don't need to distinguish them. So it is considered to be a legacy package manager in the JavaScript world. And that leaves NPM to be the de facto choice of the JavaScript package manager. And we will use this in the tutorial. So after we have installed the JavaScript library locally within our application, we need to point to these local libraries instead of the CDN versions. Currently, we have 4 different locations where we point to CDN for the libraries. The first one is the link tag, which points to Bootstrap 4 CSS. And there are 3 script tags that is pointing to the CDN version of the jQuery, Pop.js, and Bootstrap 4. So all we need is to change the source of these tags to our local version of the libraries. Let's see how we can do that. Last week, we made an arbitrary choice of using the Bootstrap CDN, the content delivery network, rather than installing the JavaScript locally in our application. That actually creates an external dependencies from our application to the Bootstrap CDN. For an application, external dependencies would make our applications become fragile, because we depend on something that is out of our control, that is external to the application. Let's take a look at how can we reduce those external dependencies by installing the JavaScript libraries locally. Before we make any changes to the application, it is always a good practice to try out the application from last week such that we know that there's nothing wrong with it and everything is just run. So let's run the application by typing npm run dev. Again, the dev is actually defined inside the package.json within our application right here, which start up the lite-server. So just try out the button, the drop-down button, and we see the drop-down button is showing the choices underneath it. So everything is running fine, so let's install the Bootstrap library locally into our application. From the Bootstrap documentation, we know that in order to install the Bootstrap library, we just need to type npm install bootstrap beta 4. So let's install the Bootstrap library by copy and paste the npm command. Let's copy the npm command line in order to install the Bootstrap library. Let's paste it. And remember to push --save such that we save this dependency into our application's package.json. Notice that there's no dependency within our package.json right now. Not the dev dependency, which is the lite-server. We are talking about the application dependencies. So let's run this. Okay, after running this, we got some warning mentioned about the Bootstrap 4 beta requires a peer dependencies of jQuery larger or equal to version 3, but none was installed, so it is not installed, as well as the popper.js. From the Bootstrap documentation, we know that Bootstrap library actually depends on jQuery as well as the popper.js. So let's install these two libraries as well. Before we install these two libraries, jQuery library as well as the popper.js library, let's confirm the actual name within the NPM repository. If you are a Java developer, you probably know that there is something called Maven Repository. And Maven Repository is for storing Java libraries. If we go to here, say we look for, say, log4j libraries. So we just need to type log4j, enter, and it will show the log4j libraries and how can we acquire them. Let's go into, say, this one, the log4j core, Apache log4j core. Click that, and you see there's multiple versions of the log4j libraries. Click on one of them, and from here, you can copy and paste the dependency of the log4j core library and put it into Maven's POM file in order to build the application using Maven. Similarly, there's an equivalent version of kind of like a repository for JavaScript library or Node.js library, which is called NPM, the Node Package Manager. So in the Node Package Manager, all we need to do, say for example, if we would like to install jQuery to our application, we'll just need to search for the jQuery right here. So let's type jQuery. So we see the jQuery library is right here. Let's click into it. Well, last time we used something like that. We used the script tag in order to install the jQuery library. But since we are going to use NPM, let's refer to this. So we have the NPM install jQuery. Let's do that in the command prompt. So we are going to save it as well into the package.json, just like the Bootstrap we have right here. Let's run that. Okay, so jQuery is installed. And it mentioned that the popper.js library needs to be installed as well. Let's copy this name, go back to the browser, popper.js. So it's right here. Let's go into it. And we have npm install popper.js -save. Let's copy that. Let's go here, paste that command, and since we have --save right here, let's run the command. So after the popper.js as well as the jQuery library has been installed locally, there is no more complaint from the NPM warning about the Bootstrap 4 requires any more of the peer JavaScript library. We are ready to go into the HTML file and make the change such that we can use the local library. And now we are ready to use the local library instead of the CDN library. So after we install all the libraries locally, let's take a look at what do we need to replace in the index.html in order to refer to the local libraries. Currently, we have 4 lines within the index.html that refers to the CDNs. The first one is a style sheet, the Bootstrap style sheet. The second one is the jQuery, JavaScript. The third one is the popper.js, JavaScript. And the last one is the Bootstrap.js. So let's take a look at the Bootstrap. Since all the libraries are located within the Node modules, we'll take a look at the Node modules directory. Let's expand that, look for Bootstrap, expand that. And the file we need to take a look at is the package.json, because the package.json actually has all the components point out in different folders. Okay, so within the package.json, let's look for the styles tag. The styles keyword. So in the styles keyword, we have this location. The distribution folder contains a CSS folder, which points to the bootstrap.css. Now, because our application is actually running, so let's copy and paste this path and put it into the CSS to see whether we have any change of the styling. But before we do that, let's comment out the styling file. So in here, we have the CDN CSS within the link tag. So let's comment it out and let's see what's going to happen. So let's save it now. Let's take a look at the button right here. Now I'm going to save it. So once I saved it, you see the button change from a round corner button to the standard style for the drop-down button in HTML. In fact, this is probably just a normal button. So now let's put back the Bootstrap CSS, the local one. Copy that, paste that right here. Go to here, change that to, let's delete the whole line. Node, modules, Bootstrap. And from the package.json, we have the this CSS bootstrap.css. Let's copy that path. Go back to the index.html, paste it right here, close it. Let's save it and see whether it will work. Now it is the normal button style. Let's save it here. So it goes back to the round corner one, which is identical to the one that is from the CDN, from the Bootstrap CDN style sheet. We can conclude that we have a proper replacement for the CDN by referring to the local CSS for the Bootstrap library. Let's delete the code. Okay. Since we are replacing the Bootstrap style sheet right here, let's take a look at what do we need in order to replace the Bootstrap library right here. Let's go back to the package.json. From the package.json, let's take a look at the main key. The main key points to the main JavaScript file as an entry point for this library. So it is actually located in distribution folder, JS, and Bootstrap. Copy this path, go back to the index.html, comment out this line. Make a copy of that line, put it here. And since we are referring to the node modules, Bootstrap library, and just now we copy the distribution folder, JS and Bootstrap, and we just copy in here. Remember to put in the extension. So we do have a choice of putting in the bootstrap.js or bootstrap min.js. Let's put bootstrap min.js, the minified version of the JS. So let's save it. Okay, let's test out the JavaScript part to see whether it works or not. And it works. So that's great. So let's remove the bootstrapped min.js from the CDN. Save it. Okay, so we have already replaced the CSS and one JavaScript. So let's deal with the jQuery library. Again, we'll look for the jQuery library right here. Look into the package.json of the jQuery library. Okay, so again, since we are referring to the JavaScript library, so we'll look for the main. So we got distribution folder and the jQuery library. So let's take that. Go to the HTML. Go here. Let's comment this out. Make a copy of that. And we are referring to the node modules again. jQuery. And the distribution folder. Close that. Save. Let's test it out. Again, it works. So that's good. Let's remove the CDN version. And same thing. Let's go and comment out the CDN version of the popper.js. Make a copy of that. Let's remove this. Notice that there is a bower.json inside the jQuery library. So that means if you install jQuery library, no matter we are installing jQuery using NPM or Bower, we are using the same repository. Let's take a look at the popper.js. From popper.js, we notice that there's only package.json, but not bower.json. That means if you install popper.js from Bower, it would use a different repository. So let's take a look at the package.json within the popper.js. In the package.json, let's look for the main key. Again, let's copy this main file, go back to the index.html. Let's load in the file, popper.js, paste it. Let's save it. And again, it works. Let's remove the CDN version of the popper.js. Let's test it again. So now we have replaced all of our external library dependencies from the CDN to the local ones from the node modules, the one CSS and the 3 JavaScripts. And this concludes our tutorial about installing JavaScript libraries locally and referring to the locally installed JavaScript from the HTML. Stay tuned for the next tutorial in terms of using a JavaScript loader to load all these JavaScript such that we won't clutter the index.html, as well as we don't need to worry about the absolute library loading sequence for all these JavaScripts. See you next time.